This is going to be the greatest time for art and for showcasing people's talents. And we're all artists right now. We're all indoors making art. So make some beautiful art.
Welcome to the Creative Mindset Podcast. My name is Isolde Trachtenberg, and I'm super happy you're here. On the show, I focus on creative thinking, problem solving, and living. Most often, I'll discuss how to ignite inspiration, meet challenges, and achieve goals through creative thinking. Sometimes I'll have guests who give their perspective. Usually, it's people who are already living their best and most creative lives. Okay, let's get to it. Hello, and welcome to the Creative Mindset Podcast. My name is Isolde Trachtenberg, and I am so very happy and blessed that you are here. Today, I have a very special guest joining me. He is a songwriter, a singer, a photographer, a videographer, a visionary artist, and he also has some incredible perspectives on life. And I'm going to just quote the Douglas Adams book, Life, the Universe, and Everything. Nicky Scorpio is joining me today. I'm so glad to have you, Nicky. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome.
Thank you, Isola. Thank you for having me. I feel like I should talk with like a really cool accent after all those great things you said about me. Thank you.
Do you do accents? I'd love to hear one.
Oh, God.
Nothing
Well,
like put you on the
sometimes
spot.
no, it's better because sometimes I get a little bit of social anxiety. So it's like it's better this way because when we're on this technology, just talking about things, it's like a lot easier and less pressure. So when I get lost in New York, this is kind of the voice that I talk with. It's just so I don't feel completely stupid because I've lived here for 7 years.
I love it. It's a great way to deal with social anxiety. You sort
Yes,
of take on a quite slightly different persona, a slightly different role, and then you're like,
exactly.
yeah, this role wouldn't be so bad. So, they wouldn't be ashamed or they wouldn't be sad or they wouldn't. So, yeah, I love that.
He's awkward, but like he's got an accent, so that changes my perspective on him.
Right. And it's funny, especially British or British Isles, Irish, Scottish accents, they always
Yeah,
sound so darn charming no matter what.
yeah, yeah. Or I can do. It's not so much that I speak, but other times because when I live in Brooklyn, a short period, people come up to me who speak Russian and they start talking with me. Excuse me, frog in throat. And it's like I have to tell them I'm from West Coast, so it is that kind of thing.
Ah, but are you from West Coast of Russia then? That's the
Exactly.
perfect. I love it.
Love that.
So you just said that you're from the West Coast. I'd love to hear about some of those formative years. What were you doing, and where exactly are you from? Are you from the Bay Area? Is that what I recall correctly?
Yeah, exactly. So this is like the short kind of version. So I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from the East Bay. I was born in San Francisco, raised in Berkeley. Growing up near people that were involved in the Black Panther Party. My mom has been a teacher for over 30 years. My
Oh, wow.
mom, I was raised by lesbians. The man who created me was best friends with my mom. He identified as gay. He passed away when I was 9. I'm an artificial insemination. I feel like I have a very wide perspective, and I'm gonna get a glass of water because this is crazy. Hold on 1 second, please, and
No
just
problem.
let that
Take your time.
marinate in this normal conversation, like
That's
everyone else.
right.
All right, hold on 1 second.
Yeah, no problem. Now, just that is incredibly fascinating. What a joyful thing to know that you were wanted so much, right? It's such a joyful thing to know that people wanted you to be so much that they planned so carefully. Wow. Yeah, there. My mother says that of my three sisters, my older sister was planned, I was a surprise, and my younger sister was an accident. Now, she was an accident because my mom was a little older when she had her, but I'm like, I was a surprise. I wonder what that actually means, you know? What does it
That's
mean?
people think they're surprised, but they don't know how intentional they are. Hey, I'm
Y-
back. Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
no
Yeah.
worries. No worries. Yeah, I actually was mentioning how how incredible that must be, and also humbling in some way to know that you were wanted so much that the people who made you went to all of that trouble to have you, to bring you
Well,
into the world.
Well, it was a juxtaposition because as much as like I had the understanding of how unique I was, um, on my inside world with those that know me and love me, and then you step outside of your comfort zone when you're a child, and then you learn lessons about, bullying and you start to learn about insecurities because of society's rules and all that kind of stuff. So it, as I continued to develop as a human being, I started to realize how intentional I was, and then I was able to let go of everyone else's bad day, so to speak.
Oh, I like that. Their trouble is not yours in that way. That's really good.
Exactly.
So talk to me a little bit about that. It sounds like some of this infuses your art and your music now. So I'd love to dive a little deeper into this idea of releasing your insecurities and becoming realizing how intentional you were, but also becoming intentional. Can you talk a little bit about how some of those early experiences sort of spoke to and informed your art now?
Absolutely, thank you. So there's a lot of artists in this world and no longer in this world, that whose names are still in this world, that were very obsessive. And I've been more of an introverted person, and the first kind of part of my life was really just being like, all right, I'm gonna learn some things about myself, and even if like I fall and trip all over the place, like, I'm still going to, go through the journey and have total and complete faith and follow intuition. So, it wasn't until a couple years ago where I just started being like, man, like I can't hold this stuff inside of me. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. So that's where my music comes in. Is it's not my agenda. It's not me being some type of victim. My story is a celebration, and so is everyone else's. And so for me, the music I'm giving first to myself to remind myself, and then to the rest of the world, is just to be like, listen, like, this is it. Wake up, love yourself. You're always gonna have a sad story. We all do. It's what connects us. So let's just rock and roll. Let's dance.
That's great. So let's just rock and roll and dance. Let me ask you a question though. Within that, we all have, I like to say to my writing students and even to my singing students, we all have a story inside us. And if you don't tell your story, then it will never be told because no one will have your
100%.
perspective. So,
100%.
so I would love to hear from you. Do you have a particular idea that developed from when you were young that that weaves through? Because I know, for example, one of your songs that I love the most, and in truth, it might be because I've heard it the most, is "Manifest."
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. You heard the exclusive before the official
I
release. So
know
that
it.
means a lot. Thank you.
Oh, no, and it's great. And so, this idea of bringing into your life that that happiness, that joy, despite whatever sorrow we've had, is it feels to me like what you've already said, like that is pervasive for you, that it's something that is part of who you are now. Where did that come from? Where did that
Um,
start?
well, first at the root of everything, I was raised by storytellers. There's a lot of storytellers in my family, and I remember growing up just listening to these, more so like the older men in my family, and the women for sure as well. Just all my whole entire family. I just always remember that, and and then also like being raised, my mom was very much an activist feminist in Berkeley, and so that's where that stems from, to be like, listen, like, even though people are different than you, even though you don't understand things, you're raised in a world where the world doesn't understand you. So try to find the connection, and then in the songwriting process, it's just like, I learned something recently, um is the greatest songs of all time that were ever recorded, can be understood at a third grade level. So when I realize, like, I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody, and I'm not the greatest communicator in the world, believe it or not, but I can have a conversation where even if somebody doesn't speak the language so well, even if somebody doesn't understand my pain, even if somebody believes like that like a book written thousands of years ago determines who I am and how I am, we can move past that because that's a distraction. And I think that's kind of apparent now. We're all kind of equal now.
You think we're all equal now. I hope that you are correct. I fear that is that we're still learning. I think Michelangelo said it beautifully. That was his phrase, even after he'd created things like David and the Sistine Chapel. His phrase was, "I'm still learning," and I feel like for you, it's still a process, and it's always a process of going deeper, of reaching for an even greater connection. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I've written different genres of music as a songwriter for other artists and for myself. And um, you know, personally, like I wanted during this process that I've been at for the past, like, I don't know, a couple years with this. I'm working on my debut EP, right? And I realize that there's so much going on, and because I've been able to travel, I see no matter who you are, like I see the humanity. I have friends and acquaintances that are wealthy, that are poor, that sweep the floors, that own the buildings, and for me, I channel it. I definitely capture it, and I don't just release it right away. I feel like a lot of times people just release like their thoughts and they just spew it out, and they think like, this is my thought, so therefore like you should hear it this way. Whereas I like to kind of let things marinate and stay in that process and say like, is there something more to this, instead of just, this is my idea that I just reached out of the top of my head. When you can go deeper and you can nurture it and you can really create something with it.
And when you do create something with it, you said you've created in songs in different genres. The genre that you're most working in now, how would you define that?
Oh man, I call this new rock and roll. I love the energy of hip hop and trap where it's at now. It's interesting with everyone being indoors, because now people are listening to these club songs and being like, huh, I kind of don't relate to this right now. This is like garbage. Like this isn't relatable. So this new rock and roll music that we're making is has the elements of, you know hip hop and trap, where it's a high energy, heavy hitting sound, and it's me singing kind of in a pop R&B, with like a rock and roll twinge, inspired, by, again, storytelling, and originality. So it's definitely a listening experience.
It is. I mean, again, the music of yours that I've heard, it's funny. My ears are older, and so I have to listen very carefully because some of it will go by me. It didn't used to be this way, but as you get older,
Yeah. Oh,
that
of
happens.
course, of course.
But what's interesting about your music is that just listening to the rhythms, the production that you've infused into the few songs I've heard,
Yeah.
there's something almost primal about it. It's like you're going back to something that's really ancient, actually, as part
Wow.
of what and I sing and perform myself a
No,
lot of
totally.
ancient music, and traditional music. And so listening to the bass, the backbeat, everything that you've got going on in support of the lyrics, of the melody that you've got, it's old. Like it takes you back to something that's really primal. Did you do that intentionally, do you think? Or
Yes, thank you. That means a lot to me that you noticed that. So like, for example, the beginnings of rock and roll. If people now, like, while you have time to stay indoors, just look at like the history of music. Like, look at how much music meant to people when music first started being recorded, and think of what you're doing in terms of that. So like, doo-wop music, when it first came out, rock and roll music, people were bootlegging it, they were hiding it to hide it from like their government because it was against the law. And I would just listen to these, like that song Manifest. Good guy, good love, good company. It's just like, it's a feeling. It's from the roots. And and that's what I want to bring back, that rawness where people are just tired. Like, aren't we tired as a society of putting on a smiley face like all the time? Like, aren't we exhausted by knowing things are wrong and just sitting there and pointing our fingers? Like, can't we, like, we can really enjoy this, and we can stop distracting ourselves and sabotaging. And I feel like music breaks down walls, music breaks down barriers, and I want to make music that, and I am, and that makes people feel alive and excited, and I need to do something, and I need to take action, and and keep going and enjoy myself. Stop with this suffering.
You know, I just got a thing in the mail that's it's a little bracelet, and it says the struggle ends when the gratitude begins. And what you just said, you know, what if we just stop the suffering, stop the struggle? And I love that you said that, that it is that way. And that connection with music allows so much of a deeper experience. I used to travel the world for NASA, for example, and we used to do these workshops all over the world, you know, in Africa and
Hmm.
in Asia and all over. And one of the things that we did as part of the workshops is we invited everybody there to share a song from their country.
Oh,
So
wow.
so we had people from Ukraine and Kyrgyzstan and South Africa and Namibia and Estonia and where, you know, just everywhere sharing their music, and it's the universal language. So to hear you talk about that connection coming through music, it just really reminds me of that idea. So I would
Yeah.
love to know from you, how how do you envision your music growing in the world, like internationally, going to other countries? What are your thoughts about that, taking that message of the history as well as the sense of releasing the struggle and ending the suffering and moving it out into the world?
That's an interesting question, because if you ask this in a normal universe, quote unquote, how we've been living, there'd be a very different answer. Now times are at a very interesting point. And for me, this goes back to our earlier conversation. Like, for me, I'm very, very much right now, more than ever, going with the flow and not focusing on fear, and just keeping it really as simple as that, and just really focusing on education. So I'm going to be recording an amazing song later today that's also has that manifest vibe to it, and it's called Bully, and it's actually like a love song. And and when I'm not doing stuff like that, i'm I'm educating myself, I'm learning things about myself, I'm going more into my approach, and I actually, amidst all of the fear and all the propaganda and all the theories, um I actually feel peace right now. So the next approach after this is when, strategically, everything will align and everything will work out. But I feel like people overseas relate to the music a lot more. I feel um like that's why people learn English. That's why people come to America, because like there's a, even though people who've lived here their whole life don't see it, there's still a freedom here that we have. And people aren't given certain bits of information, and for me, the music is a stepping stone. Like, people need to be educating themselves right now, and being okay in the anxiety and the fear, and just being like, wow, I feel like this, wow, I can't stand being around my husband or my wife, wow, like I'm on edge all the time, this is so interesting, and yeah, that's I mean, that's what I'm about. It's multifaceted.
It sounds like it really is, and it's interesting that you said that about, you know, can't stand your husband or can't stand your wife or whatever. I, on a personal level, my husband and I are getting along super well, which is
that's
surprising to
that's
both of
great,
us.
that's great. That's great.
But it's interesting because it's a self-awareness thing. People are going to be making some big decisions after this, you know.
Oh
I
yeah.
think you're right. I think there's going to be like people who went, "Oh, actually, I spent time with you and I realized in that kind of concentrated time you are the love of my life." Or perhaps they might realize, you know what, you're not the love of my life, and I want to follow a different dream. And I think we're going to see people making decisions that are for the greater good, but also for their own highest purpose. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I've had conversations before where if you look at different parts of the world, the reason why their healthcare system is more advantageous to them in different ways is because they went through certain things, hardships really, and because everyone felt it, it was change, and that's actually how change comes along. Is right now what society's been doing is just being like, hey, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't like you. When you can actually share with somebody, when you can act, when they actually experience it, when they get it through and through, instead of this aggressive behavior or like extremes, then there can be change. So I feel like what's going to happen after this, people are you can watch, you can look around, you can look at the videos and just read the comments right now. If you're into psychology, just see how people are reacting to all of this. But then at the same time, don't get too far into it. Don't make it be like, oh my god, can you believe this? Hey, 5 minutes later, hey, can you believe this? Because then you're you're damaging yourself. But yes, this is going to be the greatest time for art and for showcasing people's talents. And we're all artists right now. We're all indoors making art, so make some beautiful art.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think everybody uh, is not only capable, but we are all artists, every single one of us. I'm in the middle of writing a book all about that. In fact, about accessing your creativity, because I think a lot of people, if you're a lawyer or an accountant, it doesn't matter. You can still have art as part of who you are. It's just a matter of having the confidence to do it. And I'd love to talk to you a little bit about you mentioned something about releasing insecurity. What was the process you went to gain
Oh
the confidence and
man.
to release insecurity? Uh-oh. Did I
Oh
ask a
boy.
hot button
That might be
question?
a whole no, that might be a whole episode. No, I'm
No,
joking.
I'd
No,
love
but
it. I
that
love it.
so I'm really, I feel like I'm a seeker. So like as much as I'm open to traditional medicine, although up until like a year ago I'd never, and I only tried something for anxiety for like 2 months and my body rejected it. But I've been very much into, being a naturopath, being holistic, and doing that kind of thing. And I believe our ancestors from all different backgrounds had the original cures. And so for me, what I'm doing is I'm going to that and I'm tapping into that. And that's right now is my focus. So for me, I wasn't even aware that I was insecure. You have to even first you have to become aware that you're insecure. And what
Mhm.
insecurity looks like is when someone says something to you and you're like, you are so mean, and I'm just gonna completely stop talking with you. And the other person is insecure because if they were secure enough, they wouldn't react in that way. But neither person is right or wrong. It's just about realizing, wow, I had an insecurity here, and then when I started realizing how much abandonment had impacted my life, then I started looking in terms of like I'm interpreting every sadness from certain situations as like being abandoned, being left, or like somehow I can't handle my own life or take charge of my own life. And then I started reprogramming and rewiring myself. Just difficult, kind of like going against the stream, and then the stream started changing direction.
So when you started reprogramming your own thoughts and reactions, it's like the doorway opened before you. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, it was an awareness of like, oh, that's why these things happen. Because most people just look at their life and they're like, I grew up poor. I grew up with a dad we were very rich, but he was never around. I grew up in a middle class life and I don't know what suffering is like, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we don't realize that we're actually going through like the golden part right then, and it's just that's what it is like I just started realizing there's always going to be something to be upset about. It is literally like, how can you handle your emotions? How can you actually physically deal with yourself right now? Right now, people, for example, they can't go out to get their hair done. They can't go out to their like places. They can't, it's hard to get alcohol for people that are alcoholics, et cetera, et cetera. So people are facing themselves right now. And that's actually, you should thank God or goddess or whatever you believe in, and just be grateful. Like you said earlier, just be grateful. Just 10 minutes a day, just be grateful.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I do a journaling every morning. And in that journaling, I have three things that I write down every day that I'm grateful for. And it's not just that. One of the things I encourage on my life coaching clients to do is, no, don't just write it down, but really for each one of them, take a minute and really let your heart and your mind and your spirit well up with gratitude for that
Oh
thing,
man, you're
you
speaking
know?
my language now. You
So,
gotta feel it. Yeah,
yeah.
I would say really briefly for anyone who's interested in doing a short-term challenge. When you drink food, or that blonde, when you drink water, when you eat food, speak into what you're drinking and eating, what you want. Speak into it, and then when you bite it or when you take a sip of it, actually feel how good that feels and how delicious that tastes. Um, my lovely partner and her sister have put us on to Joe Dispenza, who really dives into that. We were watching something yesterday, and people just need to understand, like, we create our own destiny. We really do, and now it's being proven in science. So, like, let's keep leveling up.
Absolutely. And this idea of not just feeling it, but using all your senses, when you're
100.
smelling the food or actually drinking it or eating it, it is there's so much that happens, and having that awareness of what your body and your spirit go through when you're nourishing yourself and when you're nurturing yourself. I To me, that there's so much joy and so much peace in that that we can grow through that process every minute of every day. If we approach everything with that sense of, I come back to the word of gratitude, of thankfulness.
Yeah.
It's so powerful on every level. And so let me ask you a question then about that idea of gratitude. Are there ever times when you're challenged by it? Are you ever challenged by going, okay, I'm trying to be grateful for this, but this is something that feels really challenging to me right now, and I don't know how to do that?
No, I'm a social media influencer, and I can only show people that I'm happy all the time. No, I'm just joking.
I love it.
It's off of mental breakdown. Yeah, I think and again, like, I've been on a journey just to simplify this.
Hmm.
And I feel like it's a healthy thing to, from my experience, first process the emotions. So after you've had the reaction that you've had from the experience that you've experienced, sit with it. If it's unwanted, or even if it's wanted, sit with it and feel that you feel it. Don't react to it, just feel that you feel it. And then you can go someplace powerful from there. Like, it's not always easy, but then once you process it, then from there you can say, I am choosing in this moment the emotion of, you know joy or happiness. And it's difficult. It's very difficult. I'm not saying it's like some, like, Mary Poppins thing, you snap the fingers. I'm saying, like, it's very difficult. It can
Sure.
be it At the same time, though, when we start to realize how much we're choosing to be sad, choosing to be angry, regardless of what someone else does, says, etc., then we can start to have peace. And that, for me, in the past couple years, has really been my journey. Is like, I want to, beyond my circumstances, beyond all the people around me, the education I was and wasn't given, I want to feel happy. I want to feel happy in the simplest form. And that's, for me, has been freeing.
It is so freeing, and s- I'm always, to quote Michelangelo again, I'm still learning. This is a process for me. I have had trouble with that in the past, and I'm,
Yeah,
every single day
we
it's
all
there are
do.
challenges. But what's interesting to me is that when they talk to people in countries that don't have all the resources we have in the USA, they tend to be happier. They're like,
Yeah,
this
anyone.
is my life, and they not just have peace with it. I mean, everybody should have all the resources they need to live beautiful and wonderful lives, but we don't all have those resources. So it's really interesting to me how in this country we have such a wide range of people who have and people who don't have, and yet often the people who don't have end up having happier lives because they're working on their lives, on who they are, instead
It's
of,
just so
you know,
important.
what was that? Say that again.
No, this is so important. This is so like it's so like I wish people really were able to travel more and see different parts of the world and communicate with people because America as a society, we're so into control. We have to control the way that we look. We have to control the way that we dress. We have to control the way that people see us. And it's like that in other parts of the world. But when we realize like how much we're just always being like, I need to be in control of this thing, or just realize like if someone says something to you and you're immediately like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. There's no room for growth there, you know. And I think letting go of control to a balance place can really again like what I'm into beyond the music is we need to rewire and we can rewire our patterns, our brains, or like we can completely change the way that we think, and it takes effort, but it feels amazing. It feels amazing. And realistically right now, if you are a seeker, you can go online, you can find sources, and you can transform right this very instant.
Well, you could certainly begin, and that process with a what is it? What is the quote? With a single step, the longest journeys begin. And I think that's true. Even noticing, like you said, becoming aware that you might want to make a change
Yeah,
changes everything.
acknowledging it. When you say I'm making a change, you say I acknowledge I'm making a change, and then from there, like while you're doing it, while you stumble, maybe you go back into your old pattern. You say, "Well, I'm making a change. I'm still making a change." You don't. You get back onto the bicycle. And you just keep telling yourself, and eventually, your brain will just be like, "Oh, okay, cool. We're making a change. Got it. Okay." And then it starts to open up a doorway. Yeah,
Sure, that self-talk is so important. And you know what's interesting to me? Again, what I tell my clients in my life coaching practice, I talk about the idea of sharing that story. You know, that yes, I can talk to myself, but I can also share it with a trusted friend and go, okay, this is part of my journey, and I'm telling you about it in part so that I can be
yeah.
accountable to someone besides my own head, because sometimes the stuff inside your own head, it becomes insidious, it becomes deceptive. No one can lie to you like you can lie to yourself about some of this stuff.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Like I think the reason why the self-talk is so important, like there's times where like I'll be down or like someone says something to me and it hits me in an unwanted way. There's literally times where I'll give myself a minute before going into a meeting or something and just being looking at myself in the mirror and just telling myself, reminding myself of who I am, because it's again like there's so many layers to why all this kind of stuff happens. At the root of it though, we just need to make sure like okay, this is going to feel uncomfortable. Am I okay with it feeling uncomfortable? Yes. Okay, cool. And then after that, then it's like, okay, cool, now that I've felt that it's uncomfortable, is it possible for me to look at to smile? Is it possible for me to acknowledge how incredible I am? It's yeah, it's but again, you have to just see that it's worth it, because you can't you can make the greatest art in the world. Like if we're talking about like artists and musicians and comedians, you know if you don't have the mental capacity because you're so exhausted with your suffering or your whatever scenario that you're in, that then that needs to be a realization, because you need to mentally be in a place when you're around people that can help you. I manifested the management deal that I have out of complete nothingness, and it was also at the time of the matter when I met that I was in a good headspace, and I literally got told that you like my energy, and that was it.
So that's how you got the manifestation of the deal, was that they liked who you were.
In that moment, and it wasn't
That's
it
great.
wasn't exactly the Ritz Carlton, like sipping tea and being fed organic figs. I don't know what the kids are doing nowadays, but you know what I'm saying.
I do. It could have been organic figs,
Hey,
that's
whatever helps you sleep at night, helps the
so
digestive system.
that's right. Well, and they're and figs are good for you, so there you go. Um, So in that moment, you were in a good headspace, and it sounds like it radiated outwards to the people around you, and they picked up on it and wanted to, sometimes it's they want to help you get your message out, and sometimes it sounds like there's also a kind of an attraction to your spirit.
People want to be around people they like, which is why I'm not living in Los Angeles right now. I love California. I'm a native to California, but yeah, people want to be around people that they like.
Hmm.
And when people don't like you for whatever reason, you can say, hey, I have the winning lottery number here, the meaning of life, and like the exact times of places where you can meet people that can give you everything you've ever wanted. And if they just don't like you because you have a different religious belief system, because you look like their ex-boyfriend, because you're wearing plaids with stripes or something, I don't know, but like then it's not a fit. So that's where we need to really be like, you know what, I'm gonna be my most vulnerable, which is actually strong, authentic self. I'm not going to care even if someone has every single thing that I've ever wanted in front of me. If I'm not being myself, if I'm not being true to myself, then it's not worth anything in the long run, and that's something to look at. So yeah, you definitely, if you as an artist are going out into the world with art, you need to check in with yourself before you start sharing with people, before you start promoting with people, to be like, am I mentally at the place? Do I have the energy? Am I at that caliber? Like, if I didn't know me, would I want to even have a 5 minute conversation with me right now? You know?
Ooh, okay. So then what do you do if the answer to that question is no? Like if you're about to go share your music or your art with a potential agent or something like that, let's getting a little tactical here. If you're going to do that and you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, am I somebody I'd want to spend time with right now? Am I being
Right.
somebody? And the answer is like, actually no, I'm kind of in a crappy mood, or I don't feel quite
Yeah.
well, or
That's
whatever.
a great question. So that's where I feel like the mind is medicine, where you can remind yourself of, I mean, you can literally have kind of like fond memories from people who have said great things about you, great moments in your life, and you can focus on those, and it will change your brain pattern.
Hmm.
You can also, again, you can talk with yourself silently to say like, I'm intelligent, I'm attractive, I'm healthy, I have people around me that love me. Um, you know, there's a lot of different physical things. I'm not going to get into all of like the breath work and stuff. If people really wanted to, they could always like reach out to me, because I love sharing. But we need to do this in real time. We need to do this simply. And it's just, okay, if I'm being a jerk right now, or if I'm being antisocial, then I need to make sure that the next person that I come in contact with, looks at me and sees my it's not fake it till you make it. They see me at my peak, because I want to live at my peak. I don't need to be suffering. That doesn't make me a more humble real artist or something like that. When you operate from your highest place, you get other people from their highest place, and then you start meeting other people at their highest place, and you just keep on climbing up and climbing up. And that's really, where I've been more aware of energy and the choices that I'm making. Because again, like, I've been in places where there's a lot of successful people and I got nothing. I was in a place where there was really no reason to even think about success, and then that's where it knocked on my door, and my energy was good. I paid the bill that on time.
So I like that. It's like your Con Edison bill, but it's
Yeah,
for
exactly. My energy bill, so now I don't feel bad paying it. Yeah.
There you go. That's an energy bill I can get behind. So let me ask you that question then. You said that there have been times when you've been where, I forget what the exact words are, the best hotel, or the in drinking
Yeah.
the highest price champagne or whatever,
Yeah.
and it got you nothing. And do you think that was a circumstance where it was your energy that was not sort of
I mean,
appropriate or
if I wanted to be evolved, I would say yes,
okay.
100%. I'm still a
Okay.
man in work in progress. So I'm gonna give two answers. I'm gonna say yes, yes, it was 100%. It's my responsibility. If I'm not up to par at that time, then yes, there's something about me. At the same time, and I'm gonna give again Los Angeles as an example. I don't like when I've said that I'm a seeker, that means I feel like every religion has something to offer. I feel like there is good and bad in everything, and I try to understand without reacting. Like if someone's like, I'm an atheist, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I personally have seen the light of God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it. So, but I don't make them wrong for it.
Okay.
Um,
That makes a lot of sense. Judgment free zone. I love that.
yeah, and I, I don't know. Like I just I go from I go from there. That's a place where I operate from. People overthink so much with stuff. There's always like all of these, in depth things. I think what our whole conversation comes down to is more so of like we just need to have the understanding right now that we're exactly where we're meant to be, and every day that's a challenge, and every day you remind yourself in that challenge, and I try to keep it simple because I've learned so much. Like I've studied so many different religions and healers and shamans. I've done so much to the point where it brought me right around full circle. Like just if I'm being sad, and I'm in Hollywood, then people don't like my beliefs. It's because they're dark energy. Like that's what that was. So yeah, 100%. It's up to me to control my destiny. But at the same time, if you're around people that aren't good people, then that's on you to get out of that, and that's on you to speak your voice. And that's what people are doing now, is they're saying, I don't like this. I don't like the way I'm being treated. Women are saying I shouldn't I shouldn't have to even think about like what type of clothing that I'm wearing going into a meeting, and people are speaking up, and let's all just be uncomfortable right now because it's all evolution, baby, and that's it.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because they don't call it growing pains for nothing. A growth process
Oh,
is
yeah.
painful.
Yeah, it truly, truly is. And there's the dark hour, there's the calm before the storm, there's the points where you question your sanity. There's, you cut people out of your life, and it could even be family members sometimes. Thank goodness it wasn't really from me. But I've distanced myself from my family, and loving distance, healthy distance. I'm always there. If someone wants to call me at 4 o'clock in the morning, like for my family, I'm loyal through and through and through. At the same time though, like this thing that this conversation we're having, people, give yourself, commit to like being like, okay, 2020 is going to be a year, because everything else is unknown, right? We don't even know when we're going back to work. So if I can commit for this year to just really, really doing uncomfortable things that I know are going to make me better, kind of like when your parents would drag you to some place and you complain the whole way, and then you did it, you're like, oh, I wasn't so bad. And just commit to that, then we can come out of this a better people. But and I am hopeful that we'll come out a better people, but like we need to just constantly observe ourselves, and give ourselves permission to be uncomfortable, as long as there is a communal societal respect of that we can respect other people being uncomfortable. If we can have respect there, we can have respect anywhere, and that's what it's all about, man. It's all about respect.
RESPECT for sure.
She wrote it, or it's whoever wrote it. They wrote it. That's it. That's the truth. Yeah. And I'm guilty. I always try to be, respectful, and I'm human in my relationship, and when I'm disrespectful, I can always admit to it, and it's difficult, but it gives me peace, and it gives my lovely girlfriend peace, and it gives those around me peace. So if we're making mistakes and we did something wrong, we need to cop up to it, and acknowledge it, to give everyone else around us peace, to give ourselves peace, so we don't carry it in our organs and get sick and get disease. We want to boost our immune systems, then we forgive ourselves and forgive those around us.
Absolutely. Amen. Because it's interesting that you're talking about this, because this idea of messing up, we're all going to screw up. There is nobody alive that doesn't screw up sometimes.
Correct.
The key, and I think you're absolutely right, is to admit that you screwed up, and that can be hard because that takes some self-knowledge and some
Oh, of
self-talk,
course. And you
you
have to
know.
destroy your ego. You have to completely you have to be vulnerable. Oh my God. Heaven forbid.
But you know what? But see, here's the thing. Like vulnerability on that level, kind of going, like you said, let go of that insecurity, let go of that ego. Ego in the sort of common parlance. It's interesting to me. The word ego has gotten sort of mushed.
Yeah, totally.
Originally it was sense of self, and I'm okay with ego being my sense of self, and I'm okay with having a big ego in that way because that means I have a solid sense of who I am. It's the insecurity that attacks the ego that I have problems with, but at the same time, in that moment when you do screw up, let's say you do screw
Yeah.
up, you have to figure out a way inside your own self
Yes.
to admit it, and then to acknowledge it to the other person or people. And my last part of it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, is to resolve to try to do better next time.
Definitely, definitely. See, this is the thing when it comes to all this stuff. Like at the base point, none of us even know why we're here on Earth or how we got here. So that for me gives me peace and freedom. Um, I just realized like everyone's in a different stage. Like we're all, like Shakespeare said, the world's a stage. We're all merely players. Like
Mhm.
I told the older I get, the more I see how true that is. Um, regardless regardless of how someone did something that hurt you to a certain degree. Now there's always, every situation is different, but what I'm saying is that I learned to actually ask the people who have upset me to forgive me because I've been holding in contempt and anger for them, and all that they've been trying to do with the set of tools and circumstances they were given is say I love you and I want you around, and it's not fair that I haven't given you that chance. Will you forgive me? And then, and you tell them about the circumstance. Every single person I did this with said that they had been carrying guilt with them daily. And this happened, when I was a child. So that's why forgiveness, again, forgiveness is like medicine. We just need to keep on forgiving and forgiving. And sometimes that's ourselves and sometimes that's other people. But even if you don't want to, like there's been times where I don't even want to forgive the person, but I'm like, I have to. Not that I have to, but like I want to, because I know what it is when you carry guilt, when you carry shame and those kinds of things with you, you know and when you can actually have that sense of peace. Like it feels like a weight. You take this huge, I do every time I take a huge breath, and I feel better.
Absolutely. And you feel lighter.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
there's a movie by David Mamet that came out a number of years ago, many years ago now, called House of Games, and something that is said in the movie has stuck with me ever since, and that is, when you've done something unforgivable, forgive yourself.
Yeah.
And obviously there are some things that, like you said, there are some things that are awful, and I in this in the context of this conversation, I don't really want to touch on them too much, but we can acknowledge that there are some things
and I've
taking
and I've had and I've had, even believe it, as a male, like I've had to forgive very, very highly traumatic situations. So if there's someone listening to this who's like, this guy does not know, that's where the world doesn't know. That's where we're all disconnected, and where it's like, oh, you don't know my suffering, you don't know my pain, you don't know what it's like to be me. Mine is worse than yours. I've suffered more than you have. We need to cut that out as a society and acknowledge that emotions are emotions, and how we handle and process them are all different. But the feeling is the feeling, and it does not feel good when you don't feel good.
right. And this is another one of my little sayings to my clients, and that is, the worst you have to deal with is the worst you have to deal with. It doesn't matter who you are, and some of us are tested more than others, no question. It's just in the moment when you're feeling that emotion, that's what you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's your process. That's your status, if you will. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting to me this idea of, yeah, I screwed up. I did something that hurt myself, or that, or unfortunately hurt someone else, and I can beat myself up about it, which I think wastes my energy, or I
Correct.
can forgive myself, and then I can move forward, try to make amends, try to make things better, and try to do better next time, because then I'm
Yeah.
using my energy, instead of wasting my energy. I feel like I'm investing my energy into improving things.
Right. Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, like that, this goes back to what I was saying a while ago, which this is why I simplify, because I can go so deep into thoughts, and people that are introverts like understand, like, and know what I'm talking about. Like, you can just sit there and think about something and analyze every angle till you have it down to the molecule. For me, once I process, like, I'm feeling sad, then I'm like, okay, okay, cool, I'm feeling sad, got it. Can I choose to be happy? Can I choose to be happy? Okay, yes, I can choose. Is smiling difficult right now? Yes, it is. So can I just breathe? Can I breathe into the area where, like, I feel upset or whatever? Or can I remind myself? Or can I just maybe just step outside of my apartment? And right now we can't even step outside the apartment. So what do? You go into a corner if you're staying in like a studio apartment or whatever, and you don't have any room with the person that you're next to, and you just give yourself 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and say, I'll be back in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Just close your eyes and take some time for yourself, because why this is happening, like on one layer, is because we all need to take better care of ourselves. We all do. We all do.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And it's interesting. My method is I will write, I will sing, I'll grab my guitar and I'll make music. And sometimes I just put on some crazy dance music from the 80s and I'll
I
just
love
dance,
that. You
That's
have a great voice, by the way. You have a great voice, by the way.
oh,
Seriously.
thank you so much. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. But that idea of like, I'm just going to change my state. Sometimes when I'm sad, or when I'm angry, or when I'm whatever, that darker sort of the shadow self emotion comes
Yes.
and hangs over me like a bad jacket. I have to change my state, and changing my state often will mean I put on, Madonna from the 80s and I rock out and I dance like crazy. And my husband is like,
Man,
okay.
you have to psych yourself out. Like, so
Yeah.
I used to look at people that dance, and I'll be like, I'm not like the greatest dancer in the world, and I'll be like, man, I wish I could dance like that. And now, like, I've gotten to a place where I don't care. Like, I'm the equivalent of that one guy in the small town in like the random bar that you're at who's dancing with himself. Like Billy Idol wrote the song "Dancing with Myself." Like, that's me, you know what I mean? And that's where I'm at with things. Hold on one second, Isolde. I just gotta.
No worries. I love it, dancing with myself. Yeah, it's so funny and true. This idea of changing state, you know, it's the laws of physics. We change states, something has to be released, right? When water changes state from a liquid into a gas, the molecules are released and they go up as steam. When it changes state from a solid to a liquid, the same thing happens, right? There's energy released, and some of that happens in our bodies and in ourselves as we do this, whatever it is. If you are, and in fact, and I think it was yesterday's or last Thursday's, when you listen to this, I had an episode recently where I was talking about this idea of changing state, of getting up and dancing, of moving every single day, especially right now when we are in this sedentary space where we're not really going out and seeing the sunshine, getting a chance to wander, getting a chance to dance, getting a chance to move. I have a friend who was going to do this, and I just love this. She was going to take an Instagram video or some video, take the people on her friends list on a virtual tour of the art she's got up on her walls. And I had the same idea, but I hadn't done it. And I just love the idea. I'm like, this is phenomenal. Why not do that? Why not appreciate art, or go on a virtual tour of a museum? Change your
Yeah,
state, you know?
the amazing Chanakis at Chanakis, aka DJ Bunny Lion. her parents were celebrating their 41st anniversary, and so she got her equipment, and some speakers, and invited all of her friends. And it was interesting because it was like Motown music. I made like a cool little flyer for it, Motown memories, and it was cool because her parents stuck around the entire time, and had a good time. And after talking with them, you could tell that they were inspired by it. And people from all over the world that are, friends, were popping in and saying congratulations to them and stuff. So this is where we've been so, hypnotized and programmed by our own decisions and choice making. This is where I would just say, man, if everyone could just slow down a little bit more, um, and really ask yourself, like, what am I doing with what I have? Like what am I doing with the set of circumstances that I have? And like, am I doing something that really makes me excited, and no, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I love that. I love that people are being creative, and having get-togethers. And I recently showed, for anyone who doesn't have FaceTime, or their parent doesn't have FaceTime, um get Instagram, go onto Instagram's direct messages, and you can do a video FaceTime there. I've been FaceTiming my mom because my mom has, like, my mom has like a mom cell phone, and it does the job. Shout out to the mom cell phones. But now she's, calling me, quote unquote, FaceTiming me on Instagram, and it's cool, and there's more connection there. So just a little thing I thought I would drop in
Excellent. A little bit of wisdom. Yeah. And it's funny, this idea of like, we can all hang out on Zoom or Instagram or whatever.
there.
Because it is, otherwise it is a little isolating. I mean, in Italy, the houses are packed so close together that people are singing together,
I
which
know, I know. How many of us wish that we were like, even though Italy's at where it's at, it's like, yeah, don't you wish, don't you
yeah.
wish that with
Well,
our
and
newest
and
neighbors?
I think that's so amazing. I love the idea. And I've been sitting out on I have a little balcony in my apartment, and I've been sitting out on my balcony and playing guitar. And there are some of my neighbors who come and listen, but I haven't been able to get them to
That's
sing with
amazing.
me
Can you
yet.
do can you do like the violin as well?
Sure, sure. I've done
Yeah,
that
please
before. Yeah.
play some cool, yeah, play some hits for me, play some classics. I was raised on fiddle music and folk music and all of that, and Celtic music and all that. So like, I'm into it. My mom actually wanted the reason why I really got into music is my mom kind of shoved the violin in front of me and was like, play, folk music. And I'm like, no, mom, I want to be a rock star.
Well, but then you listen to stuff like Led Zeppelin, and
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
much of their music is based on the folk music,
Oh man, yeah,
of the
definitely.
time. So it's really interesting when you listen to some of the stuff from House of the Holy, Time. The melodies are all folk melodies that have just been tweaked a little, and it's so interesting to me to listen to some of that classic rock and go, I know the song that comes
Yeah,
from, you know.
definitely. Yeah, so so I have a small thing. So yeah, so next time I'm challenging you when you're playing whatever instrument, send us a video. It would be awesome to see that. Wish you were our neighbor. That's really
Oh, that's very sweet. I will. I'll definitely I'll post it up somewhere. So, I know you and I could keep on talking forever.
forever.
So, but what I would love to do is ask you to come back. I know that I'm going to have you and your other half in the
Yes.
Sophisticated Psychos on the show sometime very soon, and that I am super excited about, to talk to you both visionary artists about how you combine your
Yes.
talents and your
Part
vision.
2. Part
Yeah,
2 is coming soon.
it's going to
And
happen.
and what I'd like to say for anyone, even if, like, because I my music is still in the works, if you don't vibe with today's music, that's cool. If you're just into health and wellness and you have something going on, just shoot me a direct message, at YONICKY Scorpio on Instagram. I don't really care for Facebook too much. um just reach out to me, because I'm all about sharing. Or if you have something you think I might be interested in, share it with me, because I feel like that's, like, this is the greatest time to be alive. And if you're not feeling that way, then we're community, even if you've never met me before. But yeah, thank you, Zolda. I appreciate you. The EP Scorpio Rising is gonna come out when it's gonna come out. Just stay in tune. I think everyone's gonna really love the music and the message, and we're doing something for the greater good. Um, something really positive to show people the power of love.
Oh, that's beautiful and wonderful. And I appreciate it's funny. You read my mind because I was just about to ask you for your contact information, how people can follow
A
you.
trained
So
professional, right? Yes, yes.
I didn't even have to do that. So yeah, do you have a website as well that you want to talk about, or do you want everything to go through Instagram?
We have the sophisticated psychos.
Okay.
I personally, right now, I'm kind of like in a creative space. Like I tell people, I'm in like the bat cave, so to speak. So I'm
Hmm.
still, I'm like the mad scientist working in the laboratory. So,
I love it.
yeah, like I Instagram for right now is the best, or you can do yo Nicky Scorpio, and that's Nicky with the Y, at Gmail. Again, share, and let's spread a positive message, and good vibes.
Excellent. And I'm going to put the contact information in the show notes so that people can actually link up to you and follow you and see,
Beautiful.
sort of be part of, one of the things that I really respect and like about you, Nikki, is that you're so darn, well, you're not friendly. That's not, you are friendly, but that's not the word I'm looking for. You're welcoming, I think is the
Oh,
best way
thank you.
that I can say it. From the second I met you, I was like, wow, this guy's so engaging and welcoming. You're
Oh,
open and
thank
you're
you.
welcoming. And I'm really grateful for that, because that's, as an artist, to be that open and to be that welcoming of new connections and new experiences, that's really lovely. And it
Oh, thank you so
as
much.
I oh, absolutely, I appreciate you so very much. Now I have one last thing that I'd love to ask you. Do
Yes.
you have, actually, two last things? First, do you have a book or a
Oh, I
saying or
do. I
anything?
do. I do have a
Ooh,
book. I have a book that goes into everything um we are talking about, and
oh,
I'm
I'd
just
love
going to
to hear
pull
about
up
what it
his
is.
name. I'm going to pull up his name so I don't. Okay, here we go. So it is, and I don't know, can we curse on your show?
Yeah, we can curse on it.
Okay.
I'll just put the little
Yes.
explicit
There
thingy
you
on
go.
it.
Okay, so here we go. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson.
I love
Um
that book. I
so
love that book.
this one is still in the works. I'm reading it with my lovely partner. There is anyone right now who is feeling anger or sadness or whatever, use this, put this by your bedside, and look at it and read it like a lot. It's really like, yeah, you just need to stop caring what other people think, and it goes into it. That for me right now is is everything.
That's wonderful. I love it. That yeah, Mark Manson, great stuff. And that's actually, that book is something that I have been sharing pretty widely. So
Yeah.
I love that you said that. And then one last thing, if you don't mind, before we sign off, do you have any last words of wisdom, anything you'd like people to know, anything that's like, you know what, this is something that I'd like for you to think about as we sign off?
Yeah. I would say right now in this moment, no matter what things look like, see every single thing that comes at you, towards you, and through you as an opportunity. And when something doesn't go according to plan, say thank you, because you know that there's something better happening. You're amazing and you're powerful, even if other people aren't telling you, or if you're all alone right now. And in these times, you're amazing and you're powerful and you're loved.
That is perfect. Thank you. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Nikki. Nikki
My
said, no,
pleasure.
this has been such a delight. I've loved talking with you about all of these far-reaching subjects, and I'm so excited to share with my listeners the message that you have. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Same. Definitely. Always a pleasure, Zilda.
So you've been listening to the Creative Mindset Podcast with me, Isolde Trachtenberg, and today's special guest, the incredible visionary artist, Nicky Scorpio. I'm going to be putting up a lot of stuff in the show notes so that you can see some of the things we touched on today. I'm really excited for you to really start where you are. Remember that. That's one of the things that we can do is start where we are, because you can take time, you can take all the time in the world that you need, but eventually you need to take that first step. And that first step can be something as small or as big as is best for you. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, I send you all of my love. And remember, wash your hands. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if